In our last class, we had been discussing about international theories, and in this class, we would be discussing three more theories in international finance. Basically, as per our discussion, we know that these international theories try to explain why companies or countries engage in international trade. So that's a perspective with which we are discussing all these theories. Okay, till now we have discussed four theories. We'll be discussing three more theories, and the basic essence of all these theories lies in the fact that how does a company or how does a country decide whether they have to go with a domestic kind of trade, or should they enter into an international arena. So that's a background in which we discuss all these theories. So in our today's class, the first one which we are going to discuss is market imperfection approach. Okay. Excuse me. So as the name indicates, as it is indicated by the title of the theory, or the name of the theory, what we can understand here is this theory is applicable in case of market imperfection, or in a situation where there is no perfect competition. That's why the first point which you have to remember is market imperfection approach is a theory that is applicable in the context of an imperfect competition in the market. Imperfect competition in the market can be in the form of monopoly. We have learned all these in marketing management, right? Monopoly or monopolistic competition, or it can be oligopoly. So any of these which defines that the market is not a perfect one, that is where we go with the application of market imperfection approach. And as you can see, it was propounded by Heimer, Kindelberg, and Caves. All three of them tried to develop that into a perfect theory. That's the contributions made by these three researchers in their research paper, which was trying to explain about imperfection approach. And now, as we say, the common assumptions which we have learned in a perfect market is buyers and sellers are price takers, because the price is decided by demand and supply. Nobody can dictate what has to happen in the market. That's what we talk about a perfect market economy. Everything is based on the demand and supply forces that is applicable to a particular market. So that's one feature which is there in a perfect market. The second one is it's said that in a particular category, more or less the products that are being placed in the market would be identical in nature. There are not much difference which you can find in the market, where we call that as a perfect market. But in reality, we know that such a condition does not exist even in developed markets. Right? If you talk about two products in the mobiles, maybe in the mobile category, with say more or less same price, still they may not be identical. Right. So again, identical product is one other feature that has been explained by the perfect market. And of course, another one is perfect market information. That is, everybody in the market knows what's happening in the market. The information is transmitted at the same time to all the members of the market. That again, in certain cases, maybe during certain period in developed markets, we can experience that. But on a continuous mode, never the world economy has experienced such a situation of perfect market information. Information dissemination happens at different levels. So, but we assume, in order to explain a perfect market, we assume that there is perfect market information. And then the other one is there is no restrictions for entry and exit into the market. That again is a myth in most of the cases, because when suppose if two or three firms dominate the market, it might be very difficult for a small firm to enter, establish their market, and sell their product. Maybe it varies from category of product. Different categories of products will be having different types of restrictions. Some of the product, the restrictions are imposed by government itself. Say, for example, for us, when we talk about the buying and selling of weapons, or as we say, electricity in Kerala. When we talk about electricity and all, there are a lot of restrictions which has been imposed by government itself, so that private bodies cannot enter and transact or do such business. So likewise, it depends on many conditions, but in a perfect market, it is assumed that there is no restriction for entry and exit of the market, and there is no market dominance. That again is an assumption which we use when we are trying to explain the perfect market. Market dominance talks about monopoly, or as you say, monopolistic competition, or oligopoly, where one or few firms take up the major part of the business in a particular sector. So that again is something which is explained through perfect market. When any of these conditions are violated, we say that happens in an imperfect market. There is no perfect market. And the theory, market imperfection approach, explain international business from that context. When any or all, when any of the conditions of perfect market is violated, or when all of the conditions being violated, the market imperfection approach tries to explain the international trade. And I have put one example which you can find, which is easy for you to relate to the real market conditions. See, in automobile sector, you can see that the dominance of few companies. See, maybe it is very easy for us to talk from the perspective of a developed market like US. Initially, the country had their own automobile companies dominating the market, but then many companies floated by different countries slowly took the market, identifying an imperfection in the market. Maybe, as you say, no, Honda or Hyundai, or many other automobile companies from different parts, they took over, right? And they took over the market, and now they have a prominent share in even in the developed markets like US. So that explains that the market is not perfect in many of the conditions, right? So that is the basis of this market imperfection approach. Suppose if there is an imperfection, how does a company take up a decision to enter or not to enter a market? That's what the theory explains through this. Now, theory, actually, they say that in certain cases, we assume that the market takes care of everything. We assume that the firms will be protected through market practices. But in an imperfect market, the theory explains that that will not happen. Maybe the government has to come up with some measures to protect the market, or to impose some restrictions, so that the local economies are not struggling because of too much of imports or too much of exports. So, for example, I have put few examples where government instituted corrections happen, like in the form of extra taxes for international companies, or tariffs, or there are cases where you have to go with licenses, or you have to obtain a license to go with operation in a particular country. So all these are the restrictions that is being imposed by government to protect the companies operating in a domestic market, so that there is nobody is taking extra benefit out of these market imperfections. Say, I have put an example is, see, suppose if in India also we have that, with certain industries, suppose if an international company is coming up, the government has laid out such a condition that so much of percentage of local people from the local community need to be engaged in that company, plus they have to, like, 20 or 30, that restriction, it varies from industry to industry. They have to use some of the raw materials which they procure from the local environment, or maybe local regions. They cannot bring everything, or they cannot produce everything by bringing the total materials from a different market. So that's why the government is trying to see that there is some kind of local benefit is also brought in through these international businesses. So that's where these the next part which we are going to learn is trade barriers and restrictions. So the basic idea behind these trade barriers and restrictions are explained through this theory. The theory says that always the market cannot be considered as a free trade zone and just left it on its own. It needs to be controlled. It needs to be regulated. The conditions need to be monitored such that it is favorable to both the parties, maybe to the international, without hindering the benefit of the domestic market. So that's the theory about. So the theory is applicable in a condition where there is no perfect market, right? Any or many of the conditions of perfect market is violated. In such a case, the theory explains the need of government intervention for protecting, for offering greater benefit. At the same time, you're opening up your arena for the international companies to introduce their product and all. That is, you are protecting your local industries. At the same time, you're supporting your international players, which can bring a lot of employment opportunities and growth in the country. So in a nutshell, if you ask me what is this theory all about, the theory tries to explain how international trade can happen in an imperfect market. What are the aspects that need to be considered by policy formulators and administrators when they plan for international trade in an imperfect market. So these policy planning can include protection, regulation, and also how to open up, how to liberalize the different sectors. As you can see in India, India has not gone for a complete liberalization in 1991. It has come up with step-by-step liberalization, taking care of the different aspects in that particular sector. You can just look in from the banking sector or insurance sector or retail sector. Everywhere there was a step-by-step progression taking care of the local needs. So that is what the theory tries to explain through imperfection approach. So that's the first theory which we are going to discuss in our class. The second one is something called as transaction cost approach. It's very easy to understand. Okay, transaction cost approach revolves around the simple principle of deciding based on the cost of a transaction, taking decisions about going for international trade by looking at the transaction cost. That's what the theory is all about. So here, as you can see that no, normally as you say, no, in cost accounting and all, when you learn, we will learn like make or buy. A company can decide whether they are going to buy the raw materials or whether that they are going to buy the semi-finished products, or they are going to decide it to be produced within the factory. So that is make or buy. Should we buy, or how do they decide? They decide based on the cost factor. So here also the basic aspect which will be taken or which will be considered for making decision regarding international trade is the transactional cost. A country can decide whether to go with the domestic trade or an international trade based on how much is the transaction cost. If the transaction cost is too high, it's very high, maybe the country will think of domestic trade. They may not think of going for an international trade because transaction cost includes monitoring, controlling, coordinating, getting an agreement with the buyers and sellers in different countries, then financing your international trade. All these are included under transaction cost. So if that part is very high, maybe the country should not think of going into the international aspect. Or as you can see, I have the last sentence where I put comparing transactional cost with internal production cost. That is, maybe if it is a say you imagine that an Indian firm is planning to take up a decision whether to import a particular material or to resource it from the national boundary within the domestic boundary. Say maybe we are talking about wheat atta manufacturing company, maybe companies like Ashirvad and all, they are in huge requirement of wheat, and they need to process it to go with the final atta or wheat production. So for them, they have many options, which, because the quality of the wheat, the availability of the wheat, the price of the wheat is very important for them when they are pricing the product. Right, because if they go wrong in that, it will affect the availability of the product, it will affect the pricing of the product. At the same time, they may lose the market to their competitors. The company will be very careful with from where, how, at what cost to resource the wheat, the basic ingredient in such a product. So the option in front of the company can be, maybe they can have a consortium of farmers whom they provide the seed. They can take care of the production process, so that they can ensure that they get quality wheat at the time they require. That's first thing which the company can think of. The second thing is they can procure it from farmers. They can become a collection agent, like, coming in collaboration with different agents, intermediary agents from different localities across the country. Or the third one is, there are many countries, especially the countries in the Western regions, where they can go with mass production, where they have an advantage of going with mass production, so that maybe the cost is little low for them. So when they look from that perspective, the company will decide whether to go for making a consortium, making a group of farmers who can be engaged in production of wheat, or second one is procurement from the local traders using or supporting with the support of the intermediaries, or third one is importing from different countries where they can get at a cheaper cost. Right, definitely the transaction cost will be one factor apart from cost of wheat per quintal, because if importing requires a lot of procedures and process, maybe the company will look for other option of producing that in the domestic arena, or maybe within the country, by using by forming a consortium of farmers, by engaging them in cultivation, or maybe they can use the help of intermediaries, or even they can approach to the derivative markets where it's been sold based on the availability. So it is for the company to decide. So in this context, the company will take up the decision based on many factors, of course, but one factor which will significantly influence that is the transaction cost involved. How much is the cost that is involved in procuring that through an international trade? If they find that the transaction cost is the total cost involved in procurement is much lesser than producing that within the country, definitely the country, or as such, the company will go for procurement from an international market. So that's what the theory explains through the transactional cost approach. So in this theory, as you can see in the slide, transaction cost, the decision maker can make a choice to use a firm structure or sources from the market. Source it from the market can have two types. One is either from a domestic market or from an international market. The theory here definitely is concentrating on international trade, and the theory explains from the perspective that sourcing becomes favorable for a company when the transaction cost is least, when it is having lesser transaction costs, because the first line, as you can see, optimal organization structure is the one that achieves economic efficiency by minimizing the cost of exchange. So that minimizing factor is very much applicable when you take up a decision of whether to go with an international trade or a domestic trade. Okay, so that's the essence of transaction cost approach. So in a nutshell, we can see that the theory was proposed by Williamson in the year 1979. Later, he went with a revision for this theory based on the current market environment. And the decision making in this theory is based on the involvement of transactional costs for every business transaction. for every decision that is taken up in the context of a firm. So whether to make it an internal process or to go with an external activity depends on the key factor called transaction cost. That's the theory all about. Now, the last theory, which is little more an expansion of the first two theories which we are explaining, is the theory of international production. See, it's just, you're just stretching it to a different level when you go with the theory of international production. The theory is proposed by John Dunning in 1980. And here, as you can say, generally when a company think of an international, we said that the decision of going for international production or international trade depends upon the transaction cost. The theory added one more thing, that is the production cost, the total production cost. Here, they have explained it in this way: transactions are made internal if cost exceeds internal cost in the free market. That is, if the cost involved in going for going for external trade exceeds the internal cost that can be incurred if you go with the production within the market, definitely the company will go for an internal production. That is, there is always a weightage that is being considered, which is beneficial for the company. Normally, that only will happen if a company, when they look from a country's perspective, if they have two options. One is they can go into an international market, or the second one is they can go with their local production. And if that is the case, some of the companies, they cannot think of going for an international market. But this theory is explaining in a condition where the company has two options in front of them. One is they can go for an international market. The second one is they can go for domestic production. And definitely in this case, as per Dunning, he says that if your internal cost is lesser than the cost of going ahead, cost of going for an external transaction, external trade, definitely you will go with an internal production. You will think of producing that in the domestic market itself. You may not be preferring to go for an international trade. However, if you find that you have some benefit which can occur due to availability of raw material, which is available due to location of this particular country, or maybe because of warehousing facilities, maybe because of technological know-how, or maybe because of human capital. You think from the perspective of software companies who are going with the outsourcing into Indian market. Why do they do that? Because basically the total cost, employee, the labor cost per employee is very low when they consider with their market and the Indian market. That's why they are actually going with this outsourcing, the task of delegating that some of their development as well as the business outsourcing works to countries like India or Malaysia, or as you say, where the labor cost is much cheaper. So they are having a benefit of having much lower cost involved in labor turnover. Right. So that is where you consider the international production. That is one with respect to labor, which I explained. Maybe some of the companies, they also will think of moving into a different location because of the cheaper capital availability, or maybe because of the availability of raw materials, or maybe sometimes some companies, they will have larger market in different other countries, maybe in the international market. So in between, some of the countries may be very good because of their transportation facility. They can be like a mid, the location, because of their locational advantage, they can minimize the cost of transaction. So in such a case, maybe this particular company will think of moving the production to that company which can assist, or which can bring down the cost of transportation. So there are many factors that will be considered when a company is going for international production or trade. But primarily, the theory explains three types of international entry. One is export, two is foreign direct investment, and three is franchising. We have learned all these three. Export is you are exporting your products to a foreign country. And when we talk about foreign direct investment, that again is a long-term investment where you are trying to invest in directly into a company in a foreign location, right? Or as you say, no, you can also think of going with franchising, which is again another option for you when you find that the production cost would be much lower if you go with franchising option. All these are in front of you as good examples. Say for example, KFC or McD or these are companies where you can think of why they have gone for franchising mode, because most of the productions happen here, and the company has extended market to almost all locations across the globe through this model called franchising. For indirect investment, you can see that many of the large companies, software companies, who make up their investment either by going with a collaboration with an Indian company, or maybe directly they have a branch which has been set up in India, and they undertake their operations through that branch, which is more or less a direct involvement in international trade. Or the easiest route is export. You export your product to different countries, different locations. When you find that your market is saturated, or when you find that you can produce in large scale, taking the benefit of economies of scale, right? So this is the essence of the theory of international production. In a way, the first theory which we discussed in our today's class, it actually talks about just one aspect where they say that there is an imperfection approach which is available in every market because perfect condition is not met. In such a condition, that definitely requires an intervention from the government side to protect the local industries, at the same time promoting the international trade. Okay, so the theory was explaining about the presence of an imperfect market. The next theory in our class, it tries to bring how does a company go or decide to go for an international or a domestic trade. There it identified transaction cost is one of the important factor which decides whether to go with an international activity or to continue with the domestic market. So if the transaction cost is very high when you compare with an international production, I mean Indian internal production, naturally the company will go with an internal production. And the third theory, this theory included only the transactional cost, the theory involved in monitoring the trade, the theory involved in controlling the trade, like you have to go with an operation within maybe you have to appoint few staff to regulate your trade in that different location. All these will be involved in a transaction cost. Maybe you will have to set up a location in an international market to go with your operation. So that is where you talk about the transaction cost. And the next theory is the next level where it explains the total cost involved in going for a business decision, right? It not only talks about one way of what is the additional cost involved if you go with an international trade. The third theory tries to explain that from the perspective of international production or international selling. That is, if your total cost is comparatively lower, total cost of production, total cost of selling, total cost of labor, total cost of capital is comparatively lower, then you have an added advantage of going with international trade. Right? So that was the popular thing. That's why the theory explained three aspects when they were trying to explain how this international production happens, either through export, to export that to a different market, which is very simple, which is a direct method, or you go with a direct investment in many of the companies in the international locations, and then you go with your trade. Or again, theory also explains about franchising mode, which is not as risky as foreign direct investment, but still more risky than an export, because you have to have a location, you have to ensure that your products are delivered with the same quality, with the same identity in all the markets. So many of the companies face a lot of problems because of that, because if the franchisee is not operating as per the no patent, as per the identity of that product, naturally that will affect their sales in other markets also because of this customer response. So the company needs to be very careful with at the time of deciding upon a franchisee partnership, right? So these are the three theories, and I think we went with all the classical and modern theories. And what you have to remember here is, when we learn these theories, you have to learn from the perspective of how it affects the decision, or what are the components, or what are the factors that is being explained in this theory which can affect the decisions of international trade. Every theory has tried to explain how international trade can happen, or in what all conditions international trade can happen, by taking different components. Maybe the angle of looking at it could have been different. Say this theory talked about opportunity cost. There were theory which talked about product life cycle. Today what we discussed, it talked about transaction cost, or cost of total cost involved in the production, or maybe how what are the factors that would be guiding international trade in a condition of imperfect market. So likewise, you have to remember which will be the keywords for learning these theories. Right.